Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, and perhaps even good evening. Thank you so much for dropping by and joining me for another exciting Daz Plus exclusive presentation of the Daz Plus Pro Artist Series. Very good to see you all. Very good to see you. X201 is here. Indeed, it's starting. Yes, absolutely. And Dragonade is here. Mr. Brian is here. Mr. Leo is here. Miss Julia is here. It's wonderful. Good to see so many of you. Mr. Jeff is here from France this time. That's very exciting. And Forgotten Lectures. And X201, I believe that is everyone I see in the chat. If I haven't shouted out your name, then just do give me a little wave. It is wonderful to see all of you watching, because I just simply ran out of time last time talking about funky animation stuff. So it's wonderful to have another opportunity to go and continue on from where we left off last time. So I'm planning today to literally have the session split into two parts, and the first part is going to focus on some of the helper tools we didn't have time for last time, such as the wonderful Daz, the animated shader system. I want to show you how to do that, and a big news on that I'll come to a little bit later. Something I didn't know, maybe you didn't either. Something like an update that's got smuggled in. Has to do with lighting, and specifically with mesh lighting, so very exciting. And other helper tools like IK Chains, that's a really nice sort of animation helper, as well as a posing helper tool we're going to talk about, and a related technique called Limp Stick. And then this is the first part, and I'm hoping I can cram everything in to that. And then in the second part, we're going to focus on getting animations out of Daz Studio and putting them into the brand new release, because I like living on the edge, Unreal Engine 5.4, which the plugin is almost ready for that, but I think I know how to make it work. So let's do that. If you have any questions, then please drop them in the chat. We have always time for questions. Anything, even if it's off topic, I'm sure I have time for that, or I can make time for that. If there's anything that you want to know that you didn't get a chance to ask anywhere, please drop them in the chat. If I don't see this myself because I'm like in the zone and stuff, then my moderators, Dragonade, Julia, or Brian, will fish him out and drop him into our super secret Discord channel, in which we're going to have a look at that. But hopefully I'm going to catch him. So nothing. Just remember, there's no stupid questions. There's only stupid answers. So do ask anything that you want. Anyone else getting sound dropouts? Well, hopefully not. But do let me know if you do. Maybe my microphone is getting old. I don't know. Sounds good in France. That is really good. Safo 85. Good to know. Good to know. So I thought maybe the first thing we can do is have a look at Daz. That's an animated shader product, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but if you had something like a really simple sphere. Oops, what name is that? Is a crazy name. Let's go and what? That is crazy name. I've never seen that name before. Let's make a sphere here. Let's make a sphere. And also I'm on the wrong keyboard. There we go. I am. There we go. Perfect. So if this is a sphere and you had the timeline open here, you can see the sphere down here. And no matter how many parameters you select here, scale or hidden or aliases or whatnot, the one thing you can't see here is anything that is on the surfaces tab. And that's a problem, because if I wanted to make my ball go from, say, blue to green over the course of 60 frames or 30 frames, then Daz Studio doesn't offer a native way to make that happen. But sometimes that's really useful. Say you had a light source, like a light object, you can animate the intensity of. But if you had a mesh light object, that isn't so easy, because if you need to animate technically a parameter on the emission channel. Likewise, if you have something on the base channel, the base color, there's no way to animate that, because that just doesn't appear here anywhere in the timeline. So Daz makes that possible, and it does so in quite a clever way. The product is sort of under, I just click on smart content and then I go into all products and I find Daz here, and it is a product, so you have to install it. They give you a serial number that you have to put into under window workspace. Window, what was that again? No, it was help. There we go. Help about installed plugins, and then you find it there once it's installed, and you put your serial number in there, restart Daz Studio, and then it's up and running. So it comes up as a product, but really that's not how you use it at all. So if you double click that, you can see that we have one prop, which is the Daz basic OpenVDB container. Thank you, Brian, for the link. That's great. But that isn't really anything that with which we enable that. A Baz is this is a helper tool if you wanted to animate VDB sequences. We're not going to deal with that here, but there's a video on the Daz channel that I've recorded a year or so ago. So it can do that as well. It's a very powerful thing. It can do VDB sequences. It can do image sequences. If you had something like an image on a TV and you want that to be animated, you'd have to have something like an image sequence pre-rendered of the sequence that's on there, and then it can go and display that on a plane. So that's what this is for, or this is what this little helper tool is for. But really, we need to see this as a tab, as a pane. And I think I'm going to go and take my draw settings away and my heat bridge. I'm gonna go and close that pane as well. And I'm gonna go and bring this up here. I don't have it docked, but if you go and just right click anywhere and add the Baz pane from here, then this thing comes up if the plugin is enabled. Also under window panes and then a Baz, you can enable and disable that from here. So I'll go and put it here for now. Actually, I'm gonna go and put it down here, because now that I've got some room, because I want to see my scene tab and I want you to see the scene tab as well. So the way this works is, with this tab open and the object that you want to animate selected, you're going to go and create here an animated shader. There's also little helper tools here, but we don't worry about them. Just this one here, create animated shader. Click that, and then you can give that shader a name. That creates another node. I'll leave it on the default, but if you do want to animate multiple objects, it's always good to leave it at that, and then just, give it something like a suffix, like sphere or whatnot. I'll just leave the defaults for now. Super simple. And then we have another node here, which is the animated shader. So I've got now two objects that I can do things to on the timeline. The sphere, which is like for positional changes and all that. But then there's the animated shader, which is for shader properties. And the way this works is under the parameters tab now, with the animated shader node selected, you have the node owner up here, which means this is the object that this node is controlling and essentially stealing all the surface properties from, and it makes them available on its own native parameters tab here under a Baz. So we have one thing called default under a Baz, because we only have one surface zone here, and on here I have all the other properties that I can animate, or that I saw on the surfaces tab of the sphere. So that's how that works. If I go and make that blue here, say sphere is blue. If I go back to the animated shader and go to parameters, and then I go to base, then why can't I see the color here? Maybe I'm just going to go and delete that and go and create myself a new one here. Maybe it hasn't worked quite the way I had expected it. If I go and select the animated shader, go to base, then I can see that color is now blue. And more importantly, I can go and animate any of these things as part of what's on the animated shader node, because parameters can be animated in Daz Studio. So let's go and try that out with animated shader selected. I'm going to maybe take my face away just in case I do something on the timeline that would otherwise be occluded. I'll go and set myself a keyframe on the animated shader. Sometimes it doesn't quite take that, I don't know why. But then if I go move my playhead forward, let's say to 30 frames, I can go and, oh no, actually I think I've forgotten something. I need to go and switch this on. So sorry, I've forgotten to do that. That is why the keyframes haven't worked. I need to enable that thing. There's also record and the files animation. This is if you wanted to have something like an image sequence or VDB sequence. We're not going to use that. Just enable this. And now I believe it's going to follow along. I think if I go and do this, can I go and select a keyframe now? It still doesn't appear. Oh, is it because I need to have hidden enabled? That's why. Okay, fine. Hidden enabled. Good stuff. So we've got one keyframe and my sphere is blue. Say at 30 frames, I want the color to be something else, like pink. That might not be a great transition from blue to pink. I haven't tested this out, but if I do that now, you can see blue turns into pink. And that's kind of cool. So this works on all parameters. I can go from blue to pink, and then maybe at frame 60, let's go to something like yellow. wiggle the playhead for this change to become available. I guess it doesn't refresh otherwise. And now we have a ball that's changing color. So that is very cool, isn't it? Absolutely. I think so too. And the good thing is it doesn't just work with color values. And you can imagine a color value is something very different under the hood than something like a positional value. So this is not a float value. I think it's a struct, actually. It's a value of 3 different values together. Or I could animate things like they're not in the same order as on the surfaces tab. So I could animate the geometry, the cutout geometry here, and then say on the first frame, I want this to be 100% visible, but then at the end, I want this to be not visible at all. So make that 0, and then go and wiggle this, and then we see that this thing is sort of fading in gradually over time, as well as changing color. So you can animate all kinds of values there, and it's a very, very powerful tool. I believe it is currently on sale, is it not? I don't remember. I think I saw something on sale. There's a big sale happening. So maybe that is something you want to pick up. It is really powerful. I've used it in the past to animate anything from mesh lights to all kinds of other flickering bits and pieces. And I'll show you that in a little in the Japanese alley that we can have a look at. So anything that you could previously see on the Surfaces tab and that was unanimatable, is that a word? You could go and now animate it thanks to a Baz. You can do this with multiple. You can also go and take this shader and just parent it to the object it belongs to if you wanted to just not see that anymore. That's a neat way to keep your timeline tidy. So yeah, that's how you do that. Enable the shader, add the shader, enable it, start animating surface properties of the object it belongs to, and then that is that. $10, that is not bad, Brian, that is not bad. Would gradient colors work? I don't know. To be honest, anything that's on the Surfaces tab is now on the Parameters tab. So if there's anything that you feel you want to try animating, it's probably going to work. So I could make the ball. Let me just go into the cutout opacity. I'm going to make that, put that back to 1. It's just this one little bug that once you make that change, it doesn't immediately work unless you wiggle the timeline, and then it sort of comes into play here. You could animate the object becoming gradually more metallic, I guess. That is a possibility. Metallicity. If you don't know where it is, just find it. Metallicity, there we go. So 0 at the front, maybe make it metallic at frame 30, and then make it unmetallic again at the end. Even though that's sort of weird for render engines. Look at that. Something turns into metal and then turns back into shiny plastic. Very cool. You can animate roughness values as well. And again, this is something, if you wanted to have an animated texture on this where you see something crawling over this, you can literally have an image sequence rendered out that you can use. I don't have one prepared, but I think I do have a video on the Daz channel about that. Woohoo! I'm already costing you money again. This is crazy. Sorry about that. I'm going to go and create myself a brand new scene here. And let's load in a set and see how this works to animate a flickering light. I think that might be a nice little test project here. So in maybe environments. Japanese alley. There we go. I believe this is by Melly 3D. I'm going to use the night scene. And let's see how we can make that happen. So I remember a time, and as you probably know, I'm always working in filament because I really like filament as a preview option. Even though in previous years it wasn't quite there yet, it looks like the developers are actually taking care of things under the hood, which is really, really nice. And now filament supports... Am I going to use this camera here? No, I'm not going to use that camera. I'm going to make my own camera. This camera be gone. Everything's under one neat and tiny group here. That's really nice. Uses instances as well. This is very cool. Let me just go and browse through this. Whoops. It's opposite way around, up and down than it is in Unreal Engine. that is very confusing for me. There we go. Maybe we'll use something like this, or maybe from the other side here. Let's go look at it from here. Get some lighting right, and I'm thinking maybe I'm going to go and animate this this yellow sign here. I'll right click on the loop icon to change my focal length here, maybe this could be my camera. So I'm going to go and create a camera with the perspective view in mind, just in case I want to wander around. Make the camera invisible so we don't we see the overlay here. And so in previous years, if I wanted to do something like animate light source, there was no way for me to preview this inside a filament. So if I go and grab my surface selection tool and pick this sign up here, JA sign 05. If I go over to the surfaces tab, it says it has two material zones. I'm going to use the decals one. Under emission, it already has emission on there. And if I go and change that, you can see that that is actually changing in the filament preview. So that is very cool. This is something that's new and didn't exist before. So now I can at least, they're not emitting lights at the moment, but you can at least see the material changing, and that is pretty cool, because it means if I wanted to preview my animated light here now, I can totally do that. Maybe 0 would be this, the sign isn't glowing, and then let's say 20 was the default value, maybe 50 is when the sign is glowing. So let's see how we can animate that. Because it's deeply buried into this long structure here, I'm going to go and take it out. So this is all very neat and tidy here. I'm going to go and put the camera in here. Actually, that's good. And in fact, I'll put all these bits and pieces also into the alley group, and that means I only have one group node now. If I wanted to go and animate this, if I select it, I can go and take this out. So just left click and drag that all the way to the top, so that it sort of pops in above or below this group here until you see that sort of orange square turn into an orange line here like this. And then if I go and close this, I see that I've just taken it out of the group, so it makes it a little easier for me to find it. So just like we did before, I'm going to go to my Advanced tab here and create an animated shader for this object. So as I do that, it already knows whatever's selected, it gives me the option, this is what the animated shader is for. And I'm going to call this one here JA05, just so that we have a bit of a reference to that, just in case I have multiple. Once again, with the animated shader selected, timeline open, let's go and turn the total time to 61 so that we have a little bit more time. Then on the parameters tab with the animated shader selected, I can go and first of all clear my search field here and make sure the node owner is this, enable that animated shader. Make sure I actually see it in the preview here. And let's say on the first frame, I want for this to be lit up like this. Let's go over here and not the metal, but the decals one. Under emission, that's 50. And I'm just going to go and put keyframes here. This one, the first one, I want the sign to be on until about maybe say frame 20, and then I want it to just flicker, like go out and come on and off. And this brings me to another interesting point that we didn't actually discuss in the previous video, in the previous stream, that this is a great way to use the so-called, not the linear interpolation, but the constant interpolation. So technically, if I wanted to do this with regular TCB or the logarithmic animation, I would have to set a keyframe here with the same value, and then on the next frame I'd have to set another keyframe with the value of 0, and then leave it at 0, then set another one for a full whack and so forth. But that's a lot of keyframes, so I can save myself some work here by just putting one keyframe here and just set it to 0. So now put a keyframe here, there we go. Now it basically goes and fades in and out. That's not really what I want, but if I go and change that in a minute, then it'll make more sense. So on the next frame, I can go and make that 50 again. So then as I wiggle it, it goes and comes on, there we go. But it sort of fades and then it stays on, and at that frame, it's sort of 0 again. I don't know why I'm not seeing the keyframes here, because technically, they're definitely there. I can definitely see this working here. I don't know why. Sometimes it's a little buggy. Can't tell you why. It is problematic because we do actually want to see. Oh, there we go. So I had to just switch on and off hidden here, so for them to come into vision here. So I don't want that to animate from full wag to 0. I want that to happen immediately. So if I go and select my keyframes here, and then go right click and change the keyframe interpolation to constant, then this should change immediately as it hits that keyframe. So for flickering light, this is actually very cool. So now that I have that, I can go and copy those. And then maybe go and paste those here. And then we have a flickering light. And I suppose at the end here, I would like for this to eventually come back on. What's happened here? Now it said 1500. Who said that? That's crazy. I didn't do that. Let's go and do this again, shall we? That's bad. Maybe I need to do it manually. Sometimes these things can be a little buggy on the timeline. Dang. What's going on? I didn't set 1500. But Nate, I think maybe it was thinking of you. Is that possible? You have a telepathic link with my computer. What's going on? Here we set it to 0 for 2 frames, and then we set it back to 50. Crazy stuff. So to make sure there's none of that fades in or out. Keyframe interpolation to constant. Let's have a look at it. Now we have flickering light. Not quite flickering as much as I wanted, but you get the picture. So if you wanted to have it was so Mr. 1500%, I totally agree. So if we wanted to animate another object, we would do exactly the same thing. Let's say the no litter sign here. Just quickly as a demo, this is it. I'll go and take that out so that it's also just easier to find for me. And once again, with Abbas selected here, I'm going to create a new animated shader, and this one I will call, this one is B06. And now we have a second one. So you can go and put these underneath these objects just to tidy them up. So the JA05, thankfully I've named it. I can just go and put that here, retrospectively tidy it up, and now I can go start animating this this next flickering light. Yeah, but so this is how you can do that. And you can also go and change the colors and all that. So very, very helpful tool. I thought I'd let you know about it because it is really, really, really funky. Let me know if you do have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. So this comes in handy. Yeah, I know. This comes in handy time and time again anytime you want to do something with animations and materials that would otherwise be very difficult to do in Daz Studio. Right, that's interesting, Forgotten Lectures. I know that they have made they did some work on this, and I'm using sort of a publishing build, which is a little flakier than the release builds. This is usually a little bit ahead of the beta version of Daz Studio. I do like helping the developers out every once in a while. If I do spot something like this, I will go and totally bring it to Dr. Jellybean's attention. Hope he doesn't laugh at me. Sometimes it's just an operator fault, you know? So, yeah, no, this is expected behavior, Jay. It's just you're just not using it right. That's possible. Let's talk about something else that is both a pose helper as well as a good animation helper. I'm going to go and start a brand new scene here. And I'm going to show you something that has been in Daz Studio for a while, and it's in fact Brian who brought it to my attention back in the day. Thank you so much for doing that, Brian. It is the venerable IK chains. We don't need a bass anymore. I'm going to go and close that pane here. Yes, it's IK chains, and they work. They are very, very clever little helper tools that allow you to bind nodes of a rigged figure to a different figure, and then go and animate that other figure, and the limbs of your figure kind of follow that. That's really badly explained, isn't it? Imagine you had hands of a person on a steering wheel. It's really difficult to make sure as the car turns and leans into corners to animate the hands being on the steering wheel. And what you could do instead is use these IK chains and parent them to the steering wheel, and then animate the steering wheel, and then the hands are sort of glued to the positions of the steering wheel, and they are being dragged, and you're using the IK functionality of the Genesis figures to essentially make that calculation for you without you having to do this. Let me show you this in a couple of ways. Maybe first with the gray figure, and then with my friend with the motorbike handles. Exactly, motorbike handles is a good example, or the daunting animation sequence of hands and feet on moving pedals. And it's difficult enough to just animate the bicycle without having to also hand animate the figure sitting on the bicycle. But IK chains make that sort of possible. So let me go and show you the principle. In fact, let's just go jump right in and show you this with my man, the Neanderthal. He's only just come out. Great figure. I really like him. He's a good blend character as well. If you want to give some distinctive shape to your characters, just blend a little bit of Neanderthal into your male or female figures. Gives them a very funky look. Includes just the head morph as well. If you just want to do that for the head morph, that's cool. But yeah, I really like that figure. Very nice. William, welcome. Good to meet you. You mentioned a while ago that you upgraded to a 32 gigabyte GPU. What brand? I need more than 16 gig I have now. Keeps resorting to 8-hour CPU renders. Oh, that is bad. No, my GPU is actually 24 gigabyte GPU, and whoops, sorry about that, I didn't mean to do that. Mine is the RTX 3090, and I think the 4090 is the current card of that sort of generation. And it is faster, but it's also a bit more power efficient. I'm gonna go and put the cargo shorts from Genesis 2 onto him because I think that really suits him. Yeah, so I did that. Before that I had Genesis male, and I'm going to use the loose template. Before that I had an RTX 2080 with only 8 gigabytes of RAM, but that was not enough. So then I upgraded to this one, and that works much better. That works much better. Yes, I think if I was in the market for a new GPU right now, I would probably go with the 4090. They are about $2,000, which is a lot, but it's an investment. You're probably not going to have to upgrade your graphics card for 3 to 5 years, I would imagine. Thank you, Brian. Exactly. I'm just trying to pronounce your name. Is it IDG man? IDG man? IDG. I might call you IDG. I think that rolls easy off my tongue. I hope that is okay. How are you doing, buddy? Here he is. This is the Neanderthal. And I think rather than showing you this twice, I'm just going to show you the full whack. Maybe with a ball first, and then we're going to go and put him into a car. Let's do that. So I'm going to go and create myself say a sphere. This is new. I don't think I've seen that before, so constantly with the new things here. So let's say he wants to hold this ball here, and imagine that's a football, and we want to go and animate the ball as it goes up and down. It's a bit like the constraints that we had before. Let me go and use Power Pose for that, just because it's easy to select. I'm going to go and put this hand forward here. Nothing super fancy. And I'm going to go and put this towards the ball as well. Imagine his hands are now really close on the ball. I mean, we can try that out like so. And then, oops, come on, just with your hand. Is that the right hand? Could be the right hand. When I say right, I meant the correct hand, like that. So imagine you're holding this ball. Never mind the crookedness of the fingers. If I wanted to go and animate the ball up and down and have his hands automatically follow, here's what I would do. I would find the 2 points of his body that need to be attached to my helper object. So in my case, that's the right hand, and it's also the left hand. So let's start with the right hand first. With the right hand selected, I'll go and create myself a new IK chain up here. And that has a few options here. I'm going to go and leave the default. So you can also go and parent it directly to the right hand, but that's not going to be helpful for us. So I'm going to go and leave the defaults, which means the node isn't on, I mean, it still references the right hand, but it's not appearing directly underneath the right hand. It appears underneath the top node of the figure here. So that's sort of what I want. I'm going to go and use the left hand to do the same. So create IK chain, like so, leave the defaults, and then we have these 2 IK chains here. So these are now sort of glue on targets that can be controlled by something else. If I go and take these and then left click and drag them onto my sphere, then I have the sphere and the controlling point of the sphere here. When I go and take the sphere and move it up and down, I can see that his hands are moving with the sphere. And the sphere isn't very exciting, but I can go and move it closer and further away, and within reason, the figure is going to follow, and the 2 IK glue targets are going to follow no matter what I do. So that is a very nice. Sometimes it goes wrong if you move the ball like further away, and the IK targets just can't be resolved. Shoulder popping and stuff. So it doesn't always work, but it's a nice animation helper. So let's go and move that back into position. If I just crashed Daz Studio, I hope I haven't. There we go. Perfect. It's true, it's true. LD Gilman, thank you so much for correcting me. I appreciate that. LD Gilman, wonderful to meet you, my friend. Yes, if you needed more RAM, that is absolutely true. Then the consumer cards, the RTX series, can't actually be used for that. You have to use these cards that are made for data centers, these A series cards, like Forgotten Lectures just said, and then you can go and string them together and pool the RAM, so to say. So if you had something like 2 16 gigabyte GPUs, these A series GPUs, you can go and pool the RAM together. But it's not meant for consumer hardware, and you may need to get sort of a workstation server sort of hardware for that to work properly. Yeah, I don't have that. I only have a single GPU. There used to be an advantage in having multiple GPUs in your system. That still is the case for something like Daz Studio. If you head over to render settings under advanced, and if you had multiple GPUs, they would all show up here. So like, yeah, I only have this one here, RTX 3090. But if I had 2 in my system, then the scene would be rendered on both cards, but the scene itself needs to fit into each card. So it's not seen as one large card. It just means that 2 cards render the same scene simultaneously. So as you hit render, the whole scene gets sent to both GPUs, and each of them calculates a certain amount of ray bounces. And if you had 2 cards, it would be twice as fast. It would also draw twice the power, and it will emit twice the heat. So think very carefully if that is if your power supply can actually do that. Yeah, so with animations, it's one of those, the Tesla cards, that's right. With animations, it's one of those things, you wouldn't need that. If you do need iRay as a if you had like a longish type animation and every frame takes like 2-3 minutes to render, yeah, and then it does make a big difference. Whoops. Let me go and remove the IK chains here and the sphere, and in fact go Control-Shift-F to, whoops, with Neanderthal selected, Control-Shift-F to bring him back into the A pose, and show you what this would look like if we attach both of his hands to the steering wheel of a car. Let's do that. You can start with, I'm going to go and pick a car here under transportation. I'm going to use this one here, the luxury car from the 1950s, but any car will work as long as it has a steering wheel and as long as it is a rigged car. Let me go bring this in here. There it is. Very nice. That's a good car. Let's bring Mr. Neanderthal sort of out here first of all, and then we'll go and make it a convertible to begin with. Let's go and select the roof and just go and hide it here in the scene tab. That makes it a convertible. Let's select the door and go use this little gizmo here and open the door. How exciting, look at that. I love little rigged cars like that. What else can we open here? Bonnet, or hood rather, depends where you're from. Look at that, it has interior and everything. That is cool. I think this car today is available for under $1. Pay per hour, yeah, exactly. That's right. That's what these cloud rendering services do. You hire a service by the hour and let them do the heavy lifting. Okay, and here we have the steering wheel. I don't think the stick. No, the stick isn't rigged. But the steering wheel certainly is. So if we glue his hands to the steering wheel, we can go and make this work here. let's go do that. So you can start with a seated pose. I'm just going to go and do something with power pose real quickly. Quick and dirty, so to say. Power pose, I'm going to go and lift his legs up like so. And then I'll go put his knees sort of down like that. I'm not going to worry about the pedals. I don't even know if they're rigged here, but you would do the same with the pedals. I'm going to go and take the hip here. Is that the hip? Is it? Yes, it is. And make him, put him into something like a reclining position here. And then we'll go and move him swiftly into the seat here. Like so. Control F to zoom in on him. He looks sort of comfortable. Let's say that's him in a seated position now, watching the road eagerly. Let's go and bring his arms up and forward. So if we might have to go and bring him forward a little more. See if we can make that happen just with the hand selected, and just go move my man, come on, forward. Or in fact, even better, let me go and just move you like that. That's perfect. Move that arm out and the other one sort of in a little like that. It's a bit like watching Bob Ross make a painting, isn't it? Then we go over to the hands and we just go make the hands clasp the steering wheel. Oh, we need to bring them forward just a bit more, just a tiny amount, but that's okay. We can just go move you forward just like that. Let's say that's the hands in position. I mean, obviously, you know, spend more time with it so that it looks really good instead of the hack job that I'm doing here. Now let's say that's him driving the car now. Doesn't look bad at all. But even doesn't matter if it's for an animation or not. And let's not worry about the feet here. But it doesn't matter if it's for an animation or for a still picture. If you wanted to show him in multiple panels of your story, and he needs to just have the hands in different positions, now we can go happy little trees. That's right. We can go and do the same thing as we did before. We're going to go over to the left hand and over to the right hand, and we're going to go and create an IK chain on either of those hands. And then we're going to go and find the steering wheel here, which is itself part of the rigged figure that is the car. So we can also attach it to one of these nodes here, and then animate the steering wheel and go do the thing. Let's go do it. So right hand, first of all, create new IK chain. Use the default, so it'll be at the bottom of the Neanderthal figure here. Might as well close this down. Now we go for the left hand. Same thing, create new IK chain. Close this down so that we see a little bit, you know, don't get too confused. And then here was the, where was it? Steering, that's it. So left click and drag those guys onto the steering wheel. And now with the steering wheel selected, I can go and move the guy as he drives down the road, which is really cool. And once again, sometimes when you go to extremes, I think this looks very cool, I have to say. Now we can animate his expressions and see what, you know, see how he goes. Move him exactly. Move him. Obviously, got to look left and right, see if nobody's coming here. It's good stuff. Sometimes you may have to go and recorrect it, like his other hand here that came off the steering wheel now. but you know, it's one of those things that's the posing that you just have to correct. Sometimes also when he goes and does this, you might want to go and have him now lean into the curve a little bit, so he might have to, you know, go lean over, something like that. Or not, depending. Yeah, exactly. Now we just need some rear projection for that authentic 60s look. That's right. But you can see how powerful this is, and I didn't have to go and reposition the hands every time, and I still have to do a little bit of work, but the bulk of it is sort of done, and I kind of like that. Yeah, that's IK chains, and they've been in Daz Studio for a while. I think since Daz Studio 4.11, 4.10, something like that. So very, very exciting. I like this. A related technology behind this is Limp Stick. That is more like a mathematical process. It's a product by 3D Universe in which the developer uses calculations in order to plant things like feet or hands onto an object and then calculate the movement of those nodes as the object moves. So very similar. It's not quite built in, so it's a separate product, and it's generation specific. So there's one available for Genesis 8 and 3 and another one for Genesis 9, and it's called Limp Stick. Let's have a look how that works. So it's another cool tool, and yeah, it's going in the same direction, but is sort of more, how should we say it? It's this on steroids, so to say. It does, yes, it does. So IK Chains does respect limits. Sometimes if it can't quite get it right, then yes, it's due to the limits and you can't switch them off. Good question, because the Limp Stick actually has an option to calculate this as you do stuff. Let us use. Should we use him again? Let's use him again. Actually, let's use them again. Let's yeah. Why don't we do that? Let's use them again. Thank you, Brian. Exactly. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So it's not a perfect solution. It just gets you to a certain amount of to a certain point. And also with the ball example, in real life, I wouldn't just use my arms. It's a bit like if I wanted to, it's this trick with the look at target. If I wanted to look left, I don't really just roll my eyes to the left. I would use my whole upper body to do that, and that's multiple joints. So the IK chains, they would basically just glue the one node to a target, and if you wanted to properly animate it, you have to also animate the other nodes by hand. So you wouldn't just yank the hands away. I mean, IK does something for you, but it doesn't do everything. So it means you just have to do, a little bit of manual adjustment. But it's a good way to get, part way. I don't know why I like this outfit on him so much, but it kind of works. T-shirt as well. Genesis 2 lives again. At least the outfits. There were some really good figures in the Generation 2 and 3 and 1 for that matter. Whoops. That was clearly the wrong button combination I pressed there. Yes, I want to cancel that run. That's fine. Control F, not Control R. That was it. So if we had him on a surfboard, in which case maybe we don't need to have the shirt, because he would probably do surfing with a body like this. Let's see. I think I have a surfboard here from Teen Josie. I'm not going to use her outfit, but I'm going to use that surfboard here and put him on here. Let's see if I find a pose for that. Just something that'll work well for him. Poses. I'm going to go into pose files here. Filter by content, and I think I'm up for a standing pose, something that looks like he could be doing it on the surfboard. Something with both his feet planted on the ground. This might work. Yeah, that might work. Let's try that. Notwithstanding the fact that he's holding guns or what. And this is great. This is a good surfer pose. Let's do that. All we need to do is turn him around, and let's say he's on the high waves now. Oh yeah, this is gonna work great. This is gonna work great. Perfect. All I'll do here is lift his foot up a little bit, and that foot looks pretty cool here. Right, so this is him surfing now, and it's a bit like what we had before. It's difficult to use the IK chains here because they're only going to work so far. So if I wanted to have the surfboard animate now, let me go and make that like a 61 frame animation. And I'm not going to animate him. I'm going to go and animate just the surfboard here. Like say for over 10 frames, it goes and does this. His feet don't move right now, and then maybe it does this, and it's, you know, it's all happening on the high seas here. I'll do this in 2 passes. I'll do this first, and then I'm going to go and bring this back to 0 over here. So that's the surfboard doing this. And then I'll do another pass in which maybe over here the surfboard starts going up a little bit, like so. And that certainly isn't part of his foot movement right now. And here it goes down. And then it sort of goes back up, and then over here we'll be back on the 0 here. So that's what the surfboard does. But of course now I want him to do the same thing, or at least sort of move with it. And that's where Limp Stick is a big, nice little helper tool here. So he's the Genesis 9 figure. So I'm going to have to go and find the Genesis 9 product first of all of that. I can't actually tell where it is. Could be under utilities. Is it? Oh, I need to go into products here. Utilities. There we go. Limp Stick for 3 and 8. And Limp Stick for... Gotta be in here somewhere. Let me search for it. Oh, there it is. Limp Stick for Genesis 9. There we go. That's right. Just normal surfing James Bond. That's right. So Limp Stick is one of those few products that you can't launch from the smart content. And it took me a while to figure this out. But if you go into here, there is a script here. There's documentation here. If you launch either, it just doesn't work. So what you have to do is right click on this and say show asset in content library mapped folder, and when you do that, it opens up in your content library, and from here you can start it, but you can't directly start it from the content library. It's the same on something like the Man Friday's post converter. It has the same problem. So I think it's a limitation with smart content. Sometimes that happens. And so before we launch it, we need to go and tell it what we actually want to do. So it is figure specific. So this looks for limbs of the Genesis figure. So in our case, we need to find the right foot, and we also need to select the left foot. So left thigh, left shin, left foot. So control select both of these, and also select the item that we want to attach these things to. So control select also the surfboard. That's all the 3 nodes that the script needs. If you don't select all of them, or if one is missing, or if one is incompatible, it'll tell you. So if I go and double click that to run the script, then it'll tell me, well, something's going on, invalid selection, because I've selected the right shin. That is right shin that's not a good look here. So let's go. Let me exit out of that. I didn't mean the shin. I meant the foot. So left foot, right foot, and the surfboard. There we go. Double click on this, and now green means that's obviously amazing. And it also says you have selected the following appendages to follow the target surfer outfit surfboard. So it knows these are the things that want to go onto the surfboard. I can select where and what I want to animate. So animation play range is this. I can set other things here, and this is this here says include foot post. No, sorry, respect joint limits. This is something that's enabled by default, and it means it'll try to bend the appendages, so to say, as far as the limits will let it. But that isn't always giving you great results. So I'll try it with it on and just say process. And it goes and does some magic calculations, and it'll give you a little progress report here. Limp Stick finished with the following warnings: joint bends out of rotation limits. So it wanted to bend the feet more than it was allowed because of the limits. So it means I could have switched that off, and then that might look better. We can run it in again in a second, in a moment, and see what this looks like. So if I go and do that, I can see the feet are certainly sticking to the surfboard. And if you look closely, this foot here, that's probably not perfect in that movement. But look, I mean, this looks fairly funky, I have to say. Very cool. And then you can go in a second pass, you can go and animate the figure itself. So you can go and animate the body of the figure up and down, left and right, forward, backwards, and then run the utility again. And then you have a really handsome looking animation, I have to say. That's quite cool. Let me go and just run this one more time, still with the same selection in place, and just go and disable respect joint limits. And then you can just go and overwrite it here. And let's see if that looks better. I mean, you can get the really weird results because the joint limits are there for a reason. So I suppose here you wouldn't really be able to bend your feet like that in real life. So, but yeah, the script can make it happen. So let's go and just animate that upper body movement with him on top of what we've just animated. So I'm going to look at him from the front, and as the surfboard goes left and right, absolutely, for something that's a one-click script, it really isn't bad. I'm going to go and do the left-right motion first and just have a look at what the surfboard does, and then I'll do the backwards-forwards motion as well, and then run the script again, and we'll see how that goes. So that turns sort of to the right over here. So I'm going to go and use this with a right click on there. And let's say he bends over like that at this point. We go from here to there with the surfboard. And now he probably wants to go the other way. So right click on here, just go and try to retain that balance, buddy. And now that we're going to do this in the second step. And we're going to go back, I suppose here he's back in the middle. And then here we go and have him sort of maybe swing over to the right a little. As an action to his reaction to his action. That's that. And now since the surfboard is also going forward and backwards, let's see if we can add another motion to this in which he's now sort of with the left mouse button. I'm going to go and do something like that. And that's the board going forward. And then he might sort of over here, he might go and do sort of that. And then back. Oop, was that a little poppy there? That's a bit too poppy. Yes, I think we have keyframes too close together here. That's not good. Should have set that on the same keyframe here. Okay, that's what this looks like now. And then you can go and do another pass for the arms, for example. You might not want to have the arms going like they are right now. Maybe you want to have the arms. I'll go and set a full keyframe at the end of this here. With my man, whoops, have I crashed Daz Studio? I hope I haven't. Phew, there we go. I meant to set that keyframe on him in this position. And then just have something, just do something with the arms that he goes and puts the arms out, maybe in the middle of this. Like say he goes from here to sort of here. And then a little later, he will have done the same with this arm here. And then he goes and brings the arms back together. So maybe it's something like this. As he goes and, you know, does the high C's here. So now to make this look cool, we can go and run the script again. So in case we wanted to also, that's another thing we can do. We can go and move his hip position. Let me do that, in fact. So that we go and say, this is the hip. Maybe he goes up and down a little bit. And as the feet go and poke into the surfboard, it'll be, the script's just gonna go and calculate that out in a second. So maybe that's up, but here he might have been down again. How about that? So that's kind of nice. Whoa. Let's see if it works. So now with our script again, I'm going to go and select, whoops, I'm going to select the left foot and the right foot. And I'm going to select the surfboard here. Cool cats don't save. No, we like living on the edge here. Should I save? Let me go save. Okay, fine. You guys rock. Thank you so much for reminding me that I need to save. Let me go and save this. I think I have it in, is that here? Let me put this into demo. I've a couple of things saved here just in case this wouldn't have gone right. Let me go and call this Neander Surfer. Just in case, just in case. I totally agree. I totally agree. Takes a while. And we haven't even run the script yet. So let's see if we can bring this animation sort of into Unreal Engine. I'd be interested to see that. Not making any promises that it's going to work, but imagine it will work. I mean, that'd be cool. Imagine water and him actually gliding around for 60 frames. I mean, maybe we'll have to loop this thing. Who knows? So left foot, right foot selected, and the surfboard selected. Can't launch it from here because an error occurred while reading the file. It's because we're in smart content. So right click on this and say show asset in the map folder. Launch it from here and boom, everything is funky. I'm going to go and respect the joint limits again. I think that looked a little bit weird, so I'm going to go and enable that. You have selected the following appendages to follow the target: left foot, right foot, and the surfer surfboard outfit. Let me go and process this and see what that looks like. Look at that. I mean, that isn't bad for something we cobbled together in just a few minutes, really, without all that much thought into it, because the script has done quite a good job, supporting us on this way. Imagine we animate expressions. Let me give him some wafty surfer hair, and we'll see what happens. Stave, I like it. Shave. His hips might rock back and forth. Yep, you can animate that. Yeah, you can animate in layers. I mean, it's a little tricky to do just with keyframes. So with the animate timeline, you have this option to do this in layers that you start with a fresh slate for a fresh track, so to say. So if I animate his hips rotating left and right now, that is possible. But it would be mixed in with all these keyframes. So ideally, you'd want to have a separate sort of additional track that you can do that with. So Unreal Engine offers that, Maya offers that, Animate offers that in Daz Studio, but that's a bit of a limitation there because the Limp Stick script doesn't really work with that. So I'm thinking we've done quite well here. Let's see if we can go and export him out and bring him into Unreal Engine and see if we can get him rendered out. So this is the sort of more complicated part of the session, but let's see if we can make it happen. It's something I haven't tried with the current version, which has just come out. So 5.4, Unreal Engine 5.4 has some really funky animation features But I thought, let's go through this, because that's a worthwhile endeavor. If you do want to animate in Daz Studio, and if you have content in Daz Studio, you want to get that rendered out fast in Unreal Engine, here's how to do it. The first thing we need is to have the Daz to Unreal bridge installed inside Daz Studio. I've already done that. The easiest way to do this is via Install Manager. So you search for Daz to Unreal, and here it is. Daz to Unreal is installed already. This brings me to another interesting, tricky sort of business, because the developer, David Vothandel, he develops this in his own spare time, and Daz then go and fork it, merge it with the official Daz version, and then make it available to us. And this version currently doesn't support Unreal Engine 5.4, but because it's only just come out, I thought it might crash. Yes, that's exactly what I mean by that. David has a patch out already, which is available on his GitHub, and I'm going to give you that link right now. David Vothandel, could also be Vodonal, I don't actually know. Daz to Unreal. This is where he posts the latest versions, and they come with a part for Daz Studio, and they come with a part for Unreal Engine. So I've already downloaded it, but Brian, if you can dig out this link here, github.com, David Vothandel /Daz to Unreal, drop that link in the chat. This is where we get the latest version that supports the latest version of Unreal Engine. But if you're still working with 5.3, that's totally fine. That's a very stable, very good version. So you can totally use 5.3 and just use the version that comes with the with Install Manager. So one of those things. I like to live on the edge, and also because I'm looking ahead that this tutorial might then be relevant in 6 months to a year from now. 5.4 is kind of the latest that we have. But be aware, it's only come out a couple of days ago. So let's make a brand new project with it as soon as it lets me do that, and then we can go and copy the plugin in there. Well, while this is doing that, let me go and show you the scary insides of the plugin. This was a question actually I had from Terry, if you're watching, and I will make another video for you about this. In my downloads folder, I have the Daz to Unreal zip file here, and I've already unzipped it. So this is the contents of the zip file, in which we have the various versions all the way going back to Unreal Engine 4.26 and all the way to 5.4 right now. This here contains one folder which is called Daz to Unreal, and this folder is the one that we're going to copy out and put it into our project. So as this is now up and ready to rock, I'm going to go and launch 5.4, create a brand new project so that I have it, and then I close it again, then I copy that folder into my project, then I open it again, and then it is in fact working. And then I'll show you what to do in Daz Studio, and then so that we can send things back and not back and forth, but back from Daz Studio to Unreal Engine. Thank you, David. So thank you, Brian. Sorry, I haven't had enough coffee yet. Okay, I'm gonna go and start with maybe a blank project here under games, blank. I'm gonna go and call that Daz animation stream, perhaps. I'm not going to use starter content quality. I'm going to make it scalable, and that's that. Great, boom. That's the plan anyway. This might crash, as I said, and this is why we have another whole hour to make this work. And if it does work, we can see what else we can send from Daz Studio to Unreal Engine. Okay, this is our empty project, and we have nothing in here. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do is make myself a new folder here. In content, not in all. Duh, obviously. New folder. I'll call that one maps. And this is where I'm going to go and store all my levels. This is sort of an open world level. I'm not actually going to use that. I'm going to keep it super simple. I'm going to go and create myself a new level, basic level, because it doesn't have world partitioning and thousands of things we're not going to use. I'm just going to have something like that. In that level, I'm going to go and turn the directional light just down a little bit from 6 to maybe 2. And that's pretty much all I want to do here. Yes, I think that is all I want to do here. And now I'm going to go and save it. So File, Save Current Level As, under Maps, and I'm going to call that J's Level. Call it anything you want. I'm going to go to my project settings and make sure this is the level that gets opened every time we open the project here. So I'll look for J's level. That's under the project settings, under maps and modes. And so far, nothing's happened here. So I can't send things over because I need to enable a couple of plugins that this is going to happen automatically as soon as I copy the code over. But I'm going to have to go and close this down for now. And then go and remember where I stored that. So I think that's on my projects drive, Unreal Projects, Unreal Testing, and I think Daz Animation Stream is where that is. So this is the data for my project. This is my downloads folder where I have the Daz to Unreal folder for Unreal Engine 5.4. This is that here. So I'm going to go and copy that out and go and put it basically into the top directory here of my project. Usually there's another folder that's called plugins. I don't have it, so I'm going to go and create it. I'm going to go and say plugins, open plugins, and then I'm going to go and hold down Control on my keyboard and drag this over from here into there. I'm holding Control because that assures me that this whole folder is going to be copied. If I don't do that, if I just go and left click and drag, if my downloads folder happens to be on the same drive in Windows as where I'm putting it, it'll just move it out there. And if I needed it for another project, well, I don't have a copy. So hold Control down and then you're sure you're going to copy stuff. So this is the Unreal Engine part done. I've already got the Daz Studio part enabled, but let me show you where that would go. So if you dig deep into here, you have something called binaries, and in binaries you've got Win64. This is on the downloaded version that you have, and here we have Daz to Unreal.dll, Unreal Editor DazDLL.dll. So this is the file that you need to. Is that the file? Let me just have one more look. Could that be in resources actually? Is it resources? That's the one, sorry about that. So we go into the version that you want to use. This is for the Daz part now, Daz to Unreal. Then we go into resources, sorry about that, resources. And then we have this thing called DSUnrealBridge.dll. That's the one that you need. It's a little bit complicated doing it, which is why I'm really glad that the Daz folks make it pretty much a one-click affair that I've shown you on previous occasions. So this is the thing that you need. Copy that out. And then wherever your Daz Studio version is installed, there's also a plugin folder, and that's where you need to copy that, with Daz Studio closed, of course. So you go into program files usually, then there's Daz 3D, and then I have 3 versions of Daz Studio. Yours is probably going to be this one here, Daz Studio 4. Open that, and in there we have plugins, and there's a lot of DLL files in here, and I already have it in here, but this is the file that you would need to put in here into this folder. It's like heat DLL, and there's DZ, where is it? It's here somewhere, unrealbridge.dll, there we go. So that would go into here. Then you restart Daz Studio, and then you should find under the file menu a send to Daz to Unreal option. Now in the GitHub version from David, please select the character prop. Okay, we'll do that in a second. You don't get this window here that lets you install the Unreal Engine files directly into your Unreal Engine project. With the version that Daz make available, you do. So if you're after something easier, go for the Daz route. I'm sure they're going to update this to 5.4 very soon. So that is inside Daz Studio. So now let's see what happens if we go and open up my project again. Will it work, and will it have recognized that the Daz to Unreal plugin is enabled in the Unreal Engine version? Watch this space. This is exciting, isn't it? Once you're done with that setup, it's actually a fairly straightforward process. But this is hoops that we need to jump through time and time again. Oh yeah, this is a great demonstration effect. I'm glad I can share this with you. If you get to this point of it starting at about 75% and it gives you something like loading pre-default modules for plugin Python script plugin. You might at one point see that the ... dots here that keep counting down, that keep going up, they might stop at one point, and that usually means that something during the loading process just hasn't gone right. It happens, and it's on the latest version. I tell you, it's exactly right. It's whenever a version has a 0 at the end, it means it's only just come out. They're gonna release a bug fix to something like this, like to 5 point something, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. That's gonna happen, and these things will be eliminated. But you know, Epic are hot on the case, so I always say when a new version has come out, caution, my friends, caution, play with it, but don't expect it to work. It's basically a raw beta version, and you know, people are still discovering things. So if this happens here, the loading process isn't going right. So we're gonna have to go right click on your taskbar here, task manager, and quickly just close this down. Under processes, just look for Unreal Engine and go right click on that and go end the task. Perfect. And then we're just going to go and open the thing again, because usually the second time around it just works. Don't ask me why. You've missed the Jeopardy part of the stream. This is it. We're right in the middle of it. And now are we going past 75%? Python script plugin, come on, you can do it. 75. Do we see 76? And if we don't, we'll just use Unreal Engine 5.3 like sane people would. But I thought, you know, I want to be so cutting edge. Sometimes that just doesn't pay off, does it? Crazy stuff. We're giving it another 60 seconds. Exactly. Yeah, maybe it's not working, huh? This is a demonstration effect, because all week it's been working fine, but of course the moment I want to show you how it works, it doesn't work. It's one of those things. That's right, the Python ate the other 25%. Part of me is thinking, are you actually doing something maybe, or is this am I disabling it too prematurely? That is also possible. Perhaps not. Control rig, there we go. We're going places. 83, 86, 19, 95. Oh my god. We got it. This is nice. Project file is out of date. Sure, updated. I don't know what out of dateness we would have encountered, but hey, round of applause. Whoops, there we go. Let's go to edit and plugins and just have a look for Daz to Unreal. It is enabled and it is the correct version here. So just in case you're eager to try this tonight or tomorrow, there's currently, and this is going to be eliminated very, very fast, David's hot on the case, probably early next week or so, there's currently a small issue that needs us to have the ML Deformer framework enabled. If it isn't enabled, and the plugin should do this automatically, but the process has changed under the hood. So in 5.3 it worked, in 5.4 it sort of doesn't really. David has a solution on this on his Discord server under the releases channel, just in case you're coming up against something where Unreal Engine just doesn't open at all and it comes up with an error message. Then this needs to be enabled, and there's just little line that you're gonna have to tweak. So this is all good. Let's go and try. Why do we have it open twice now? Do we? We sort of have it open twice. I don't really know why, but that's fine. Maybe the previous one did open after all. Let's see if we can go and send a man, as well as the surfboard, as well as the animation over to Unreal Engine. And let's see if we can render him out there. So the first thing we need to do is send over the figure. And we did Neander Surfer. We have saved him. He needs to be selected, and then we need to go over to File, Send to Daz to Unreal, and he is a skeletal mesh. You've got several options here. For something like the surfboard, that's not a skeletal mesh, that's a static mesh. For our animation information, we have this. There's also environments that will send over things like stonemasons, urban future sets and all that, they need a little bit of work, but I'll make a video on how to do that. Kiwi Hawk and I have just been over that, and it's actually beautiful. We brought the Rogue's Red Crow over into Unreal Engine, and it works really, really well. You just need to know how to prepare the whole scene so that it works with the bridge. There's also pose. I prefer to use animations, and there's the ML deformer, which we're not going to discuss, but it's a fascinating concept, and I'm going to release a video on this fairly soon. So we're going to use the skeletal mesh, and because we're using a Genesis 9 figure, we don't have to worry about fix twist bones. This is only relevant for Genesis 8 versions here. Import facing right, I think we're going to leave that out as well, and we don't need him to have a unique skeleton. Advanced settings we don't need to worry about. This is all exciting, and we're just going to go and hit accept. This may or may not work, folks, but let's try it out. Let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, there's always 5.3. If that also doesn't work, there's always the release version that comes with the install manager. So let's see. That's what we need, isn't it? That is what we need. Here, look, Neanderthal has exported fine. Please switch to Unreal Engine to continue with the import phase. We're, of course, super eager to see if and how that pans out with super crossed fingers and clenched fists and all that. Let's see if it works. This is basically where in 3D things always go wrong. If you want to bring something that's set up perfectly fine for application A and you want to use it in application B. I've had people tell me, Wipeout, exactly. I've had people tell me, hey, I want to use a Daz character, I want to bring it into Character Creator, animate it in iClone, then bring it into Blender because I need to do other stuff, and then I need to go and render that out in Unreal Engine. And it has to be that way because otherwise I can't work. And you think, yeah, you see, the problem is sometimes you just have to make creative decisions if that's how you want to work, but you can't work like that, then maybe you need to find a different way to tell your story. That's things that are sold on the Daz Store are meant to be used inside Daz Studio and nowhere else. Everything anywhere else is basically full experimentation, and you're not meant to jump through all these hoops, but if you're willing, you can get some cool results. Let me go hit Control-Shift-S to save everything. That's always the Save All button in Unreal Engine. Here we have our surfer dude, Neander Surfer. If I open him up, looks like my man, aside from the shiny skin, even though it's kind of cool-ish, is it? I mean, he looks like he's sweating here. So we may have to go and correct that. I think it's a little bit too shiny, but that's something. Let's go and connect it. Do that now. So I'll go away a second because you want to see all these bits and pieces. What I've done here is to hold Control and Shift to open up the content browser here. That opens and closes the content browser. If you want to dock it in the layout, it will stay down here forever. So that's kind of cool. You can also close it and then you can go back to this. But if ever I do this, that's Control Space. Then in my content browser, I have a Daz to Unreal folder in which I have a Neander Surfer folder. So that's the name that I've given it as I moved it over. In here, I have materials and textures. And in here I also have various other assets. So this one here, the pink one, is a skeletal mesh. And if you double click that, it opens in its own window called Persona. And here I can see the skeleton hierarchy. I can see some morph targets had I copied them over. And I can see the material slots here. Materials are a little difficult to explain in Unreal Engine, but if we go and do something like the legs here, if I can go and isolate that, then this is the material for the legs. You can see it's by default not double-sided. And the legs, if I go and double-click this material, or let's see the arms or the head. Let's go the head. Highlight, isolate. Let's go do that. Let's go use the head as an example here, without the eyes. If I go and double click the head material, then another tab opens up, which is currently a material instance. And it has some global scalar parameters that allow me to make some adjustments here. So specular or normal map roughness multiplier, I could go and take that. I'll go and move it away here. Oops. Just so that you can see live as I update this what happens here. So roughness multiplier, if I go and set that to 10, then my guy gets less shiny. I might have gone a little bit over the top him, so maybe 5 would have been a better way. He's still got a little bit of shine on his nose, so I think maybe that's what I want here. But pick your value and then, you know, you stick with it. But notice that this is only applied to the head, so the body still has that super shininess and all the rest of the other surfaces here. So let me go and bring that back to the defaults and untick that, because the way Unreal Engine works is that unlike what we have in Daz Studio, where we have a shader or material preset that describes how a material looks, in Unreal Engine it's a little bit different. We have a base material, and that takes a while to compile once you've made a change to it. So it's easier to use a material instance on which you can then override a value. So you have a base material and you make an instance of that, and it's the instance that you apply to your object and then override values. And this is what's happening here. So this here is the material instance for the head values based on a base material, which is down here. So this is the parent. The parent is the Neanderthal base mat. If I go and double click that, then I go and see pretty much the same thing again, but this is now the parent of whatever was on the head. And it is all the other surfaces on this thing that will be translated onto things like the legs and the arms and so forth. So if I wanted to make a change to the roughness on a global level on the whole character, I don't want to do this here on the head and then on the legs and then on the arms and then on, you know, on the other bits and pieces. I want to go to the underlying parent material and make the change there. Oop, updating texture streaming. Let's go and drag this guy out and do the same thing here. So this is now the parent of that, global scalar parameter values. Let's go roughness multiplier, set that to, I think 5 it was, and boom, now we have this change propagated all over the whole body. And you know, I don't know if that was a good one here. Maybe 6 or maybe 4 or 3 is better. Maybe 3 works. So that's fine. If I now wanted to override something else, I can still do that, say only on the head or only on the eyes or only on the clothing or whatever. I can do that, but yeah, that's just how the cookie crumbles. So let me go and save everything and bring our guy into here, into our scene, just to see, does he work? Turn you around, buddy. Here we go. Maybe it's a little bit too bright. I might actually go and take the directional light out. Oh, look, it's black now. That's good. So everything came from the directional light. Let me go and add a spotlight here instead. Bring that slightly higher. There it is. Bring that sort of over here. And then turn that around like so. Make that go further up. Put it into the lighting folder. And then go and make that, I don't know, 100? Yes. Good stuff. So it looks less scary. I think maybe I should have left the directional light in there, don't know. And attenuation, make that a bit more so it shines wider. And then I'll make the source radius a little more, so we have slightly softer shadows here. Okay, great. Yeah, I think I shouldn't have deleted the directional light. Put that in lighting and leave it at the default, but just make it like, 2, so we have that. I have a little bit of sky left here, so maybe 1, something like that. Okay, great. That's nice. So this is our guy. Let's go. He's wet from the water. That's right. Speaking of which, let's see if we can bring over the animation from Daz Studio. So that's another interesting second part that we need to do. So still within the Neanderthal guy selected. Send to Daz to Unreal. And now we're going to go and switch this to animation. Now we'll go and call him, I don't know, surfing 1 maybe. Let's surfing is good. Let's surfing 1. Here we have some options here. Use new export is usually faster. Bake face bones, active curves, we probably don't need that. Once again, fixed twist bones we don't need. So I'm just going to tick this here, use new export, and hit accept. That should happen significantly faster. And in an ideal world, give me one animation asset here. which is called surfing. So let's see if it works. If I double click that to open it, dock it here, it looks like my guy's surfing. We also don't have horror face issues, but look at that. I mean, now we see this in proper preview, and this doesn't look bad at all, I have to say. We don't have the surfboard yet, but we can certainly see him gliding on the waves and all, so that's quite nice. Very cool. And the good thing is we've made sure it loops, so I could see this guy doing this for hours. We can make it faster and slower. That's all fine. So this is good. This has worked, and I didn't have to do anything. That's also quite impressive, I have to say. That's very cool. Let's bring in the surfboard. So surfboard is a separate thing, and it also is animated. So this is going to be interesting. Let's see if it works. So with the surfboard selected, let's go and send that over Daz to Unreal. Make sure this is now a static mesh, so it's selected that automatically for me. Surfboard, and we don't want any other morphs and whatnot. Skeet surfing, that's exactly, yes. Export phase is already complete. That was fast, wasn't it? No smoothing groups fine. If you ever find that, that's totally fine. That's just how the cookie crumbles. Here is the surfboard. Let's see if we bring that in, open that up. Looking smashing. There are some different material options with this surfboard, so I could have picked something else that matches his outfit a little better. But it's fine. Let's see if we're going to go bring this in here. That's nice, and make sure you're going to go and stand on that in a second. I'm excited to see if I can bring over the animation for that. So it also is animated. Send to Daz to Unreal. In this case, we want to do the animation here. I'll call it Surfboard Surfin'. New export. Let's see if it works. That was fast. And it looks like that hasn't appeared, I don't think. So the animation for a static mesh has not made it over. That is a shame. So it looks like we're either going to have to go and find a way to animate the surfboard ourselves. Yeah, I don't see this here. Those are the textures. Those are the material instances. But I don't see animation sequences at all. Animation sequence. Do we have? No, didn't come across. That is a shame. What a shame. Let's see if I can export it manually, just as an FBX, and see if that works. So this is tricky. I've had this before. Sometimes it's just how the cookie crumbles. Let's go and say surfboard animation in FBX, and I want to use, I don't think we need to embed the textures because we're going to use the material from the one that we already have, and we want to use selected only so that we just have the surfboard here, and we do want to bring the animation across. Yes, prop surfboard, perfect, accept. See if it works. Possible, I might actually do that just before I do this again. Let me go and try this one more time with the bridge and just say animation surfboard surfing, and I'm gonna untick new export. So this uses a different algorithm. Maybe that'll work this time. Let's see. It's markedly slower. Maybe that'll work. Import failed. Oh, okay, that solves that then. I guess that didn't work. And indeed, we have no animations here. That's fine. Okay, so in my animations folder, I'm going to go and just import this from what's on my desktop. See if we can work that way. Import static mesh. We could make it a skeletal mesh. I don't mind. Skeleton none is good. It's not actually skeletal, is it? So Let's try that first without. Materials, we don't want to create any materials. And also we don't really have an animation option, so maybe for that we do need a skeletal mesh. Animation, import animation, yes. Let's try that. Import all. No smoothing groups, all good. Surfboard animation. Okay, perfect. So this is indeed the surfboard, but it's not really... Oh, sorry, that wasn't the anim sequence. This is the anim sequence. It's not animating. Oh, what a shame. Okay, well, the good news is we're just gonna have to go and animate this thing again. So what a shame. At least the guy's animation came over. Surfboard, we're just gonna have to go and animate again. Okay, no worries. Undeterred, we're gonna go and press on, my friends, and go and see how we do this. A bit like what we had here in Daz Studio, that we have a timeline open and that has a controllable playhead. So this is something I do need to mention because Unreal Engine works completely different to things like Daz Studio. Things like power pose, or the simple ability that we can click on a limb and move it around, that doesn't exist in Unreal Engine, believe it or not. There are workarounds and difficult things that you need to make happen, but all these things make you appreciate that a lot of stuff that Daz Studio comes with, or all these other fairly easy character animation tools like Character Creator from Reallusion, they do make things a lot easier for us users, because technically, what I never really realized until I looked into it, when I go and click on his arm here and move it around, that isn't really the bone I'm moving. I mean, it appears that way if I go and do that. That's the twist bone here. It appears that way, but it isn't really. The bone is only visible if I go into my joint editor and then I select the bone, and I can do all kinds of things with the bone. I can make it bigger and smaller and, you know, change the limits on there. But if I'm in my normal selection mode, I'm not selecting the bones. I'm selecting a node that lets me make a change to the position, rotation, whatever, and that tells the bone what to do, but it's not the bone, and it's sort of hidden from the interface. But there's some weird stuff going on in the background, and in Unreal Engine that's just not there. So we would have to, if we wanted to do that, we'd have to create a control property and then write code that translates what we're doing with that node onto the bone, so that then finally the bone moves. And it's crazy. So Daz Studio really makes this fairly seamless process, but Unreal Engine does not. So if we were to animate him by clicking items on his body, there's just no way to do that. If you think about it, Blender is very similar. In Blender's object mode, we can select the mesh here, but we can't control it. For that, we have to select the armature, which is a separate object that makes movement possible. But it's one of those things that you have to go and think about before we go and use all these things. So things are possible, but there's a lot more work that you need to invest in Unreal Engine. So for what we need to do, we need to first of all have a timeline, because we don't have that, and we need to have a playhead that lets us step through the animation and then control the guy together with the surfboard. So we need to sort of recreate this environment in Unreal Engine, and currently we don't have that. So let's make it happen. Up here we can create a level sequence, and that is something that will let us do that. But by default, there's no global timeline object. We go and create that here, add level sequence. And I don't have a folder for that, so I'm going to go and create a new folder called cinematics. And that is where I'm going to say SQ surfing. And this is my level sequence. So it's a physical file, it's a physical object. And when you open it, or when you save it, it goes and automatically puts itself into the outliner here. And it also opens it up down here. But currently it's not tracking anything, so it's an empty timeline. And we can have objects in our scene, like the sky or the floor, that we probably don't want to track. Like in Daz Studio, we have everything in the timeline, even the stuff that we don't want to see. Like I have my filament draw options, node environment options, and I don't want to animate that. So technically I don't need to see this. And Unreal Engine only makes these things show up when you actually track them. So our guy, I'm going to go and select him. I'm going to go and add him to the timeline. I can go and drag him in, or just click on add, actor to sequencer, add the Neander surfer, and that will now make him available down here. Currently nothing's happening, but I do have a transformation or transform track here on which I can now go and make just transform changes. These green and red lines here, that is the actual animation that we're going to render out later, but currently I can go out of these lines, and that's a little annoying. So on this icon here, you can go and say keep playhead in playback range while scrubbing, and when I do that, then I can't go out of these things. So it behaves more like a timeline now. So let's talk about setting keyframes before we do anything nasty. Let me go and move the guy around. Oops. If I wanted that movement to be recorded, I need to set a keyframe either manually in Unreal Engine, or I can ask it to change keyframes automatically as I move them. So it sort of depends on how you want to work. I like working with automatic keyframes most of the time, but not all of the time. So the first one I have to go and set, which is this create a key when channels properties change. So this is that. Oh no, actually, sorry, this is the automatic keyframe option here. Sorry, this here is to change a keyframe, that. And that sets one for location, rotation, and scale. I don't actually need scale, so I can just go delete that to keep my timeline a little tidy. And then if I go to say frame 90 with my guy selected, I could go and move him over here, and then it sets an automatic keyframe because I've already set one and because this icon is selected. So if I go and disable that and now go and say move my guy up, then no automatic keyframe is selected because I had that option disabled. As soon as I enable it and then move him, then Unreal Engine notices there is a change, and now the position of the guy sort of changes. So that's nice. We can use this to make him and the surfboard, roll down a raunchy river, that sort of thing. If you want to delete keyframes, you can either drill down and be very granular about this and move these things around, or delete them, change interpolation, whatnot, or you can go and just delete the whole thing from here and bring him back to its original position. So we currently don't want him to move. We want him to play an animation, and that is down here on this animation track. If I click this plus icon, all the animations that this guy or this skeletal mesh can now play back will show up. So I can go and select that, and now we have the surfer animation. That's exactly what we need. It's not facing the right way. Also, I want it to loop probably a few times. So that's something we can make that happen by just extending that. And these little cuts here tell you that that's the loop. So let's go and do this to about here, or just make it just 2 loops is fine. There. And then if I go and do that, does it loop properly? This is loop playback down here, loop playback. Does it work? Does it work? It's a little pop there, so I might go and take a wee closer look at that. Could just be one frame missing down here. There we go. Little pop still, but it's fine. It's fine. It blends okay as we go and do that. Oh no, it doesn't. There's a little pop in the animation. I can just see that now. Okay, let's live with it for now. There's a way to just blend these two things into one another. Maybe I'll just quickly show you that. If you had this and you alt left click and drag this out, you have a second animation with nothing in between. But if you go and bring these guys together like so, then you have that nice overlap here. So they're blending in and you avoid that pop. So that's a way to avoid popping. So I can just go and make these loops manually. And let's have him do this several times, and then there's no pop there. You can also play one back faster than the other. That's also possible. So that's animation, and that's how we can step through it. So this is all good. I think I want him to face this way though, and I also want him to be slightly higher, and I also want to animate the surfboard underneath him now. So what I need to do for that, first of all, I'll disable snapping. Snapping is on by default. If I go and move the surfboard, you can see it's sort of every 10 increments it sort of ticks in. I don't want that, so I'll take this away and rotate it around, so because the fins are supposed to be at the back, I guess, and then I go and maybe move that underneath his feet like so. And I'm thinking I might go and make my directional light just a little brighter, and also take my spotlight here and just move that over here a little bit and just illuminate that side just so that I can see this a little better, what I'm doing here with his feet. Okay, surfboard sort of in position-ish. Not quite. Oh yeah, snapping for rotation is also on. So let's go and do that. Let's say this is the first position. I need to track the surfboard first of all, so add that to the sequencer surfboard, and we have another track here, and in it we don't have an animation that this guy can play back, so we're just going to go and live with the transform. So first keyframe is here, and the first keyframe is probably also the last keyframe. So I think what I shouldn't have done is loop these animations. I'm going to go and loop this once, or just play it back once, and then I'm going to do some looping, because that's going to be just much easier for me. There. Back to the surfboard and its transform. So I suppose at the end of this, we're going to have the same keyframe. So Alt left click and drag to put that keyframe directly on here, because that's going to be the same one. So now we can go and animate the rest of it. So this is one position, this is one keyframe that I need to animate. So I suppose we do that. And I think we also do sort of that. And look, automatic keyframe is happening here. That's actually quite funky with his feet jumping up and down gradually as we do that. Maybe he doesn't maintain contact with the surfboard all the time. That foot looks a little ugly. This is probably one where I need a correctional here from the side. Thankfully, it wasn't a very difficult animation. I think that's almost done it. I think here I just go move that. There's maybe another correctional I go and add here. And that I think I can live with his feet lifting up a little bit. Okay, that's that view. Let's see what happens from the front. I think the surfboard was also going left and right a bit. With his feet like here, I think. That's probably where the board goes like that. And then I think it might have gone this way. There's that small intersection with this other foot here. Let's just go and bring that down a notch. And then we do that. Perfect. So that's that block animated. Now we can go and repeat this. So for him here, we can go and just loop the animation blocks here. For this down here, we don't have that, so we can go and copy the keyframes and just go and paste them in. with that track selected. Very important. Copy and or duplicate. That's probably a better way to do it. Alt left click and drag, just duplicate here and duplicate here. Oops, did that go wrong? I think that might have gone ever so slightly wrong. This goes here, and then we go and do that again. Oop. Like so. And now a man is surfing around. Is that cool or what? I think this is kind of cool. Yeah, we still get this popping here with him, so I could go and blend this, but I think you get the picture. We've got about 10 minutes left, so let's see if we can go and make this whole guy move forward now. As we do that. Right, exactly. And go and see if we can find ourselves some ocean on which he can surf. So the easiest way to bring in something like an ocean, and I'm going to go and save this, Control-Shift-S, just in case. The easiest way to bring in ocean, thanks Julia, I appreciate that, is to have something like, I mean, you can get really, really cool water plugins for Unreal Engine. They look absolutely realistic, but we don't really need that. So I'm thinking let's go and bring in something just like a water effect on a surface. So this floor here we could use as something like that. And the easiest way to bring something pre-built in is with Unreal Engine starter content. I don't have it here. I only have a bare bones here from just whatever Daz sent, but nothing else. So there's a way to add these things in. If you wanted to have a third-person character run around, you can, or add the starter content, you can go to add and then say add feature or content pack, and then this menu opens up in which you can go to content and you can bring in starter content, and that has a lot of materials and some dummy objects and some mini foliage that just gets you started. That's kind of nice. Blueprint, this is something where you could get something like the third person or first person template in case you haven't started a project with that but you want that functionality. You can do that. Like the mannequins will come with these projects. But you know, starter content is fine, so I'll just go add it here. Takes a moment, and there it is. So you get, you know, more props, but also audio effects that you can have a look at. Other HDRIs, if we wanted to have something other than the sky here. But there's also materials here, and materials. These are basic materials, so they are not material instances. If I open one of these up here, then you can see this is what a basic material looks like. This is the actual, it's a bit like the shader brick in Daz Studio. This is the actual material that gets created or compiled, and these are the values that we give it. And then on here you can set different types of materials. So the domain could be surface or light function or whatever. It could also be have a different type of shading model here, so lit, or it could be unlit, or it could be, you know, clear code. So there's all kinds of things that you can do here, but usually you don't apply this to objects. I mean, you can, if I go and left click and drag this just on here, then my floor looks different. I could also go, just undo that, I could also go and find, with the floor selected, I can find that here. Currently it's got the prop grid, which is a material instance, so I could go and drag that in there, or click this little icon. If I say the brick, old brick, go and click that on there, then a second from now it looks like this. So that's the material applied to my floor here. So I'm going to go and do something similar but with water. Let's see if we have something like water. Do we? No, we don't, do we? Dang, ocean, there we go. Ocean or lake. Let's try that. So if I go and add ocean to the floor. Ocean, all right. That is quite funky. But if we don't like ocean, or if we wanted to make something look a little bit nicer, maybe lake. Is he surfing on a lake? Is that realistic? Nah, lake's too calm, isn't it? I think ocean was good. It's just I wonder if there's a way to just override some parameters here. And that is probably best done with an instance. Let's see what they've given us here. Oh yeah, this is the very simple setup of the water shader. This looks a little bit like when you open the Iray Uber shader. See, there's a value that we can override. Usually these things are better exposed on instances. Now we'll take to fade the small waves, modulate pixel depth with noise, large scale tiling. And here's the roughness. There's the color, we could override that, we could change that. What happens if we do that too? Is that... So if I make a change here, it does take a while for it to get compiled, then I have to save it, and then I can preview it. Whereas when I do this on an instance, it is actually, faster. Oh yeah, I see. So I've made the water slower with that now. I'm gonna go and make it a bit faster because we're on the surf, and surf's up, so 0.5, that makes the water a little bit faster. I'd like to scale it a bit, but since we're running out of time, we're just gonna have to live with the water that looks like that. So, you know, ideally faster, but hey, that's just fine. So now, if I wanted to have my guy surf around and I don't want to animate both the surfboard and the surfer, I could just go and animate the floor that we have here. Add that, and then I go and use the floor's transformation to make that happen. So maybe, so I go from here to there. Whoops, that's not what I meant. Does that work? Yeah, there we go. So now it's almost like he's surfing. Is he surfing the right way? Have I animated the water the wrong way? I think I have, haven't I? I think I've animated it the wrong way. It's got to be the other way around. That's cool. We can just go and swap these values around. Put that to the back. Put that to the front. Now he goes this way. That's much more realistic. And then you can add some water splashes here. So it's kind of cool what you can do. I think also the water speeds up and slows down. I don't think I want that. I'm gonna have the water move in a linear fashion. I'll move it a little faster here. There we go. He's surfing away. This is nice. This is very nice. Linear interpolation. We have the same concept here in Unreal Engine, and it's on the keyframes of the transform here. So select both keyframes, and then we're going to go make it linear. And now we don't have that. We don't have that slow down and speed up effect. And now he basically just goes and, you know, does this. So minus the little popping, don't worry about that. Let's go and spend 10 minutes. I think we need 10 minutes to get this rendered out. So rendering, again, that's complicated in Unreal Engine, but what you want to do is set up a camera, a bit like in Daz Studio. You set up a camera that you point, that you might animate, and then you let Unreal Engine know that that's the camera that you want to render out, and that's basically that. It's fairly easy to do, but there's a slight abstraction to this because you can have multiple cameras and switch between them. So we could have one from the side, one from the front, one from the back, and then just do a cut between those, and then have this guy, have this guy do his surfing thing for a while here. So let's go and do that. I'm gonna go. This is another funky thing in Unreal Engine that you can go and organize yourself on the timeline. I'm going to go and take all these things and move them to a folder inside the timeline. That's quite nice. So they're gonna just, you know, get compartmentalized like we would make a group in the outliner. And we're going to call that one here surfer animation, because all these objects, they stick together. If you want to see them again and reopen them, you can do that. You can also make these things colorful, so you can give these things colors, which is kind of nice, but we're not going to get into that. So this is going to be my surfer animation, and now I'm going to go and add my camera to it. So I'm going to go and frame up what I want to see. So maybe this is going to be a little side camera from here. So far, I'll go and click on this icon. No, not. I'm going to actually click on this icon, which says camera, and that turns my viewport into a camera. It also gives me a basic name, Cine Camera Actor. I'm going to go and rename that immediately, like Cam1 side view, for example. And I get like an aperture and a focal length that is sort of, built into this. So I'm going to go and move away from this a little bit so that we have him sort of here. And the camera aperture, I might go and make that 1.8, so it's a little bit shallower depth of field focus. We're going to look at that in a second. So for now, that's my first camera, and maybe I'm going to go and have this. I might have, let's say I'm gonna duplicate my whole surfer animation one more time, so that I have two passes here. Let's go and do that. Let's go and do that. And I want to keep it. No, let's not do that. I'm going to keep it simple with two cameras. Let's go and do two cameras here. So my first camera is going to be the side, and it'll go, say, from here to here. And I'm going to move in a little bit. So currently I'm piloting this camera. So I'm going to go and just navigate in there just a little bit, and as I do that, my keyframes are being set, so I'm zooming in a little bit. And I'll start from here, and then I zoom in a little bit to about here. I might go a little longer than that. Now let me go and get out of this mode, so I'm basically back in my viewport here, and now I'll go and get him from here, get him from this angle. So I'll make another camera here, close this one down, click another camera, and this one's going to be Cam2 rear view. And once again, I'm piloting this automatically, but I'm going to go and take him from sort of here with 1.8 depth of field, camera component closed. I'm going to go and let this be my first keyframe, and then towards the end of this, I want to be sort of, down here, that we see this, see the guy from the rear view here. I think maybe the surfboard should be dunked into the water as well a little bit, but we're gonna worry about that in a second. So okay, we have got the two cameras set up, and now on the top here you see that there's a camera cuts track, and if I go and select this camera here, then I don't pilot any of these cameras here, which I can do down here. I'm going to go and look through our edited sort of sequence. If I had like 3 or 4 cameras, I would go and be able to switch between them. So this is where my first camera move ends, and I want to go and switch the camera cuts track to go to the second camera. So I can go and right click on this, head over to edit, split section, and then my camera cuts track is split here. And in the second section, I'll go and right click, and I'm going to go and switch this to camera 2. So at that point, this is going to happen. This is quite nice. So now we have a little camera cut track there. We're almost done here. I think the only other thing I'd like to do is extend my camera movement over the cut track a little bit. So this movement, I want that to not end as a cut. I want this to overlap a little bit. Likewise here with this, I'm going to take that into here, and I'll do the same with this. So I'll go and do that. That way we have a continuous motion in the camera, and that's kind of nice. It's barely noticeable because we have already a lot of wafty water here. It's just one other thing I might do, and that is, if I wanted to get out of this, Shift C, then I'm back in this view here. I think the only other thing I want to do on my floor here, so to say, on my floor, I might go and rename that. This is basically the water, isn't it? Water floor. I'm going to go and bring this up just a notch, just so that it from time to time it dunks into the water here. I think that's a little more realistic here, right? And I need to do that on the beginning and the end. There, perfect. Shift C to preview what that looks like. I'm going to go and set up a tiny bit of depth of field here, tracking my actor as we do that. And then we can go and render this out. Sorry, I'm overrunning a little bit, but this is a lot to get through. I'm glad I left a whole hour for the Unreal Engine part, because that's just so much to go through. But it is something you can pick up, and it is something you can use to make your Daz assets look its best, really, and fast. Let's do it, Brian. Let's do it. So the first thing, depth of field. So in the cameras, this is a little tricky to wrap your head around, but the camera isn't just one object. The camera is this, but then you have these two components here. You have a scene component and you have a camera component. Those are both part of this particular camera. So we're using something called the Cine Camera Actor. There's also a simpler one that doesn't have that. Right, exactly. It's so easy, even a Neanderthal can do it. And the camera component has all these fancy depth of field things that the other cameras don't have. So we need to go and work with that. And we can access these parameters also in the timeline here. And that's kind of neat. So in the camera component, that's where we're going to find the aperture and the focal length, and also how we want to focus the camera. So currently it's set to manual focusing and it's set to fixed distance. So if I go here and then open my focus settings up here in the details panel, let me go away a second. You can see that under focus method here, I have a couple of options. I can say manual, or I can say tracking, or I can say disable. If I say tracking, I'm going to be able to pick an actor that the focus is going to stay locked in on. And if I do that and go and track here with the eyedropper tool, track my Neanderthal like this, or I can just go and pick him from the surfer, then that is going to be locked in. So it looks like there's not much of depth of field going on just yet in camera 1 or camera 2. Let me just do this in camera 2 as well. So camera component. As we go into here, focus settings, we want to set this to tracking, and then I'm going to go, I can pick him from here. I can say Neander surfer. There we go. That's possible too. We don't see much of depth of field right now. I can still see a harsh edge here, and that's because we don't currently preview it. Well, there's actually two things for it. So one is that both cameras need to have their own blend mode enable, the post-process blend weight. I think if I go and switch that to 0, I think that needs to happen. That's just one of the super easy things we have to remember. I think that is one thing. But the other thing is that scalability only previews the depth of field in cinematic mode. So we have to go switch that over, and it looks like that is not what we're seeing here. Dang. For some reason, it's just not happening today. That's usually how I used to do it. Just do that and then go get depth of field. Lighting needs to be rebuilt. I don't think so. That's another thing that we just need to quickly ignore. Spotlight is probably movable, and then the directional light is also movable, and then we shouldn't have to build any light. Also, just clicking play sometimes gets rid of that error. Well, what a shame. We don't have depth of field. Why not? I want to know. Tell me. Focus plane debug doesn't actually do. Oh, there we go. Could be that it's only coming out in the render. It's one of those things. Well, indeed. So if I focus on him, that should blur out the background, but for some reason, it's just not happening. I'm already on 1.8, so that is already very shallow. But it's just not happening. Okay, fine. It could be a bug in 5.4. It's possible. I've worked with 5.3 for so long. These things should work in 5.4, but hey, they don't. It's fine. We're gonna go around it. Oh, hang on. Is there something? Do we have a post-process volume? We don't. Okay, forget that then. Yeah, hey, we'll solve it another day. Let's see if we can render this thing out. So rendering in Unreal Engine is complex as well, but it's also relatively simple, and it became a little simpler in 5.4 with another node graph option, which I'm not going to scare you about. So let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about the node graph. We're going to use the movie render queue to get this out, and then we can go and stitch it together in something like Premiere or just get a video out. So the way to do that is to click on this icon here, render this movie to video or image frame sequence. As we do that, this opens up, and that's sort of the legacy old style dialogue, which works, but the new version really brings us just so much more joy and more flexibility. So I'm not going to use this. I'm going to go and enable myself a plugin that's called the movie render queue. And that's it. You have a couple here. You have the one with additional render passes that we're not going to use. This one is fine. Let's go and restart this now. And here he is. Fantastic. And then we'll be able to use the more advanced version to get pictures out of Unreal Engine. Yes, we'll do it in the post. That is a great idea. Let's just go superimpose a blurred version and the other blurred and unblurred version together. Oh, we'll live with that. Oh, here it is, restarting. And here he is, on the water, peaceful as ever. So goody, we want to open whatever was open before, I think, which actually this we don't want to open, but the sequencer we want to open. And we also want to open that movie render queue in a moment. These are the cameras as they move. So that's kind of cute to see as well. Very nice. So with this icon, if I click that, we now have two options. We've got the movie render queue, which is this new thing that we've just enabled, and we've got the movie scene capture, which I don't recommend you use that. So render queue, click that icon, and then this dialog opens up. And that is something that you can go and dock down here with your sequencer, and it's essentially a render queue that if you had multiple scenes that you want to render out, they could all go here, and you could just go let it rip, and Bob's your uncle, Betty's your aunt. We only need the one, but that's still fine. This thing here, unsaved config, that's where we're going to go into and make some changes. It brings up this window that lets us pick what we want to export. So currently it's bare bones. It's this JPEG image. It uses deferred rendering, which means this is the real-time renderer, and the output is this directory at this image size. But you can override these things. So I could say I want to render this out in 24 frames, on 60 frames, 240 frames if I wanted to. Or I want to render this out in 4K. You can do that here. 8K, you can do that. So it's quite nice. I'm going to not override that here. Oops. I'm not going to override that here. And there we go. And give it an output directory up here. So by default, it goes and puts it into my directory here where my project is, and I could leave it there, but I do appreciate a little bit of organization. Perhaps I want to make several takes, so under movie renders it'll be saved. So we can leave it there. Let's leave it there. It's fine. And that's all I'd need to do. If I wanted to have something different and not a JPEG sequence, I can go and add other options to this here. So I could say I want anti-aliasing, I want to burn in timecode or something, or I want an EXR sequence, or in fact a PNG sequence, which is what I want to do. And if I leave this both enabled, then it would write a JPEG and a PNG sequence. But I don't want a PNG sequence. I don't want a JPEG sequence, so I'll disable that. I don't need alpha for my project, so that's that. I'm also going to use anti-aliasing. Looks a little bit nicer, and I'm going to override this maybe with 8 steps. And that is that. We don't have any particle effects that we need to open up, so that's all good. Let's just remember my project directory under saved, under movie render queue. If you want to bring these settings back, and sometimes this can get quite large, all the settings that you put in here, they will be lost unless you save them to yet another file, and I recommend you do that. So let's go and put this also into cinematics. I might go and make a new folder here, and I'll call that one render settings, in which I'll call this one RS Surfer Draft, because it's not a 4K version, I might do something else with it. So Surfer Draft is fine. And this means now if I ever go and take this out, let's say there is no queue and I want to come back next week and I want to render this, I can go and click this and go into here, render settings, and it'll just go and use RS Surfer Draft immediately with all my settings intact. So that's kind of cool. Final funky moment, we're going to go and click render local, and that'll go and render my project out. Might compile some shaders before it does that, but then we have a funky working project. So this is only 1920 by 1080, and it's only rendering 91 frames, but it is relatively fast, and it could be even faster if I didn't use anti-aliasing. But look at that. This is I think this is the first shot. 91 frames, that's the first camera. And then we're going to go and do the second camera. Here it is. And I can tell the depth of field here also hasn't worked. So that's quite nice. So once we're done with that, that isn't a video. So we're going to have to go and compile those things into a video, either with something like Photoshop or Premiere. Why don't we use Premiere while we're at it? But the beauty of this is now you can render this out in 4K or 8K or whatever. You can do post-production to it. You can do multi-pass rendering as well. You can render out depth passes if you want. There's all kinds of exciting stuff that you can do with these render settings. So I strongly recommend you look into it, because that'll really overcome that render hurdle that we have in Daz Studio. So if you manage to bring these things over into Unreal Engine from Daz Studio, it's going to be epic. See what I did there? Crazy. Let's go and make a new project, and let's put that on the desktop for now, and we'll call it Stream Comp. Yes, time for audio setup issue. Time for a battle royale for Jay's RAM space. Let's have a look at how much I'm using. Am I using muchness here? No, not really. So I'm okay with 64 gig of RAM right now. That's all. This is unused right now. Currently not in use. I'm good. I'm good here. Yeah, I think, what is this? 24 is in use, and this is standby is another 20, so that's 44. Yeah, I'm good with 64 gigabytes of RAM, which is good to know. Let's go and import our image sequence. So that we're gonna have to think now. This was in here, Unreal Projects. This is in testing, and this was Daz Animation Stream. And then it said it wasn't saved, and then it was in Movie Renders, and that's where it is, SQ Surfing. So I'll go and pick this up, make it an image sequence, open this up, and here it is. Turn that into a new sequence, and what does it look like? It looks okay. I think it might not be quite the right speed. So I think it assumes it assumes it's 24 frames a second. So yeah, let's remove that and just interpret this footage to be 30 frames. It's like a default that I have set up. So this was rendered in 30 frames, so it'll have to be switched over. Now we have, that's what we saw. We could have rendered this out in 60 frames, and in fact I'm thinking, because the render went so fast, I wonder if we should just do that. You know, let's just do that. Let's go and disable everything. Just go and render this thing out, and just override this on the output. Use a custom frame rate of, let's say, 60 frames. Let's do that. Render local. Boom. You're right. Usually Adobe is very, very power hungry. I can't really tell you why, but it is a very, very power hungry program. It's so true. And I do frequently, when I work, I frequently, it's not like I'm maxing things out, but if you look at this, if you've never looked at your task manager's memory bar, this purple stuff here is the memory you're actually using. So your apps do use that. This gray bit back here, that is something that could be purged, but there's stuff stored in memory that you could access faster. So if you do a lot of file copying things even to another computer, this is all going to fill up with basically cached data. And Photoshop uses this, Premiere uses this, all these programs, they use a lot of cached memory just so that Windows can swap things in and out a bit faster. So then this third bar back here, that is physically empty stuff. But if you have something where you have the purple thing going to about here, and then you see all of that is, you see basically this last bar at the very end, then you know you've maxed out, your computers are using all the memory that you currently have available. If you have this first purple section, you're going all the way over to here, and you have a really, really slim section of gray at the back, and your computer is noticeably slow, and you're wondering why. That is why you are running out of RAM, and the purple stuff is necessary. This is a luxury, but the more you have, the better it'll be. And most of the time when I work on large projects and I've got like all kinds of things open, then my purple thing is going to about here, and then the rest is literally maxing out to about here. So I make full use of this RAM, which is really beautiful. But if you have things like Blender and Substance Painter and all these funky things open, then that is it just adds up. And sometimes you just have to have lots of apps open when you work in 3D. It's like ZBrush is another memory hungry program. Modify, interpret footage. So now we have it that we've made it work in 60 frames a second. Let's make a sequence out of that. Hey, there he is. Fantastic. I suppose I could speed it up a little if I wanted to, but more importantly, I can now go ahead and duplicate that multiple times. Let's say 4 times. That gives us 20 seconds here, and that's now our funky little animation that we've rendered out. Isn't that nice? So yes, this is I like the idea that we've done this in Daz Studio, sent it over to Unreal Engine, and then rendered this stuff out. So that's kind of cool. It's not perfect, and there's no facial expressions on here. We can probably do a lot more to make this look even awesomer. Like, one thing that's really annoying me is the fact that there's no depth of field. We could easily put a ton of background action in there, maybe boats, maybe other surfers, maybe other figures, but it's all stuff that is doable, and it really didn't take us all that long. So if you're interested in how to do this, keep watching this session. Also, if you're new to animations, take a look at the previous animation stream that we did before. There's a link to it in the description, or if not now, then I will certainly put it in there in a second. And that was it. So thank you so much for joining me. And I'm going to have a quick look if we do have any questions from you guys that I haven't answered. No, it looks like we have we've answered them all, which is nice. If you do have anything else, I'll be around for a couple more minutes. Do let me know. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, and I hope I'll see you next month for more Schnick, Schnack and Shenanigans. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.